feedback and also your encouragement to make us to come up with the next few sessions basically. So this session actually we have planned it to be like a product session of Control 4, but most of our attendees last time the feedback. So we wanted to be in automation. We wanted to know about the uh, products, but before that, so why can't we run through something like a basics, like touch base of the things like audio, video, or maybe the lighting, or maybe the networking basics, so that will give us a brief introduction or maybe a brief idea about what we are actually dealing with. And also, it is not that everyone will be good at everything. So some people might be good at lighting, or maybe some people might be uh, good at audio, or some people might be good at security. So, but when it comes to a smart home or maybe the automation platform, getting things into a single uniform platform. So you are really not doing any of these things, but it is good to know the basics. So that is what uh, it's all about basically. Okay, so that's what the this session is going to be. The basic session is like we are going to talk about a few of the basic concepts. Like, so we're gonna before we start about audio is okay, right, Suman? I see a lot of chats of no audio. Thanks. Okay, I think there is nothing issue on my side. Right. Okay, so I'm going ahead. Okay, so when it comes to a connected platform or maybe the control for automation, so our main aim is to share and enhance our knowledge of what we know actually during this time. So because we can actually like concentrate more on technical or maybe on the product or maybe on the connections or whatever I wanted to, right? So this is actually the time for our preparation. So that's why we had this basic session to be conducted on today. So following this, we will have the product session basically on control for. Okay, so to start with the connected home platform. So as you said, so the connected home, the main thing is your platform. So what are we going to integrate? And then of course, on top of it, you have your pillars like audio, video, lighting, security, and comfort and convenience. Okay, so what we are actually going to discuss on our today's our today's agenda is going to be like we are going to touch base on each and every basics. If you really ask me, each and everything is going to take about a lot of days in general if I'm getting into each and every topic. But on this 1 hour session, so I'll be touch basing few of the things what is mainly as a basic, so very basic things I'm gonna touch base. So that's what it's all about our today's session basically. Right. To start with, so I'm gonna start up with the so our agenda today will be like entertainment, so which means audio and video, and then of course the basics of lighting, basics of comfort and convenience, and the security, and then networking basics and control integration platform, and then a basic run through of a small project so that we know what we have discussed from the whole session. So this is what our main agenda is going to be today. uh, Starting with first thing is your entertainment. So entertainment is nothing but your watch and listen, which means video and audio related things. We will call it as a entertainment. Anything which comes as a like multi-room audio or maybe a home theater, projectors, or any of the audio video related information, whatever you are going to integrate is always. Is my audio is okay? Fine, Suman.
Yeah,
Yes, now
Muthaman.
audio. Yes, it's fine.
It's okay.
Okay, sorry. So I had some interruption on the power in my apartment, so I need to switch it back to my mobile device. All right. So the connected platform. So that's what we are actually going to discuss on today topic. So the basics. All right. So the entertainment, different categories. So the first one is going to be your audio, the audio basics. What is in generally audio, and what are the levels of audio we have in basic cases, like any case, right? So there are three main levels. One is we call it as a speech level, what I am speaking, or maybe a mic level, or maybe the instrumentation level, so any equipment which is playing. So most of your commercial products, which means consumer products, like maybe a Blu-ray player, or maybe a CD player, or maybe my cable box, all those devices will have a line level audio. And the next one is actually your speaker level. So your mic level, or maybe a speech level, or maybe instrument level, it will be on very very low dB, so where it cannot go for a longer distance, or where it cannot actually go for a longer audience. So it is easy way to convert into line level so that I can carry for a longer distance. And definitely the line level audio is not audible audio, so again you need to amplify it. So that's where your amplifier helps out. So that's where you'll be using a amplifier to amplify your line level audio, and you'll be connecting to the speakers. And what are the things you will normally see in your audio projects? One of those things is your analog audio. There are two types of audio in general. One is your analog audio, and then another one is your digital audio. In analog, so there are multiple types of cables and connectors you might be normally seeing in any of the projects. Just give me a second. I think there is echo again. Is it fine?
Yeah, it's fine.
Sorry, thanks. Okay, so your one is analog audio, and then another one is actually digital audio. Analog audio is nothing but actually, so you'll have each and every channel separate. So maybe you like stereo audio, or maybe a mono audio, or any of those audios. And then digital audio, where you'll have more quality, and a single cable can carry a multi-channel audio as well. So that is what it is actually all about, right? So now when it comes to analog audio, so you'll see multiple types cables you might be using in any of the projects, like you'll be using like a stereo cable, or maybe which is normally referred as TRS cables, or maybe XLR connectors or RCA connectors, but the basics is always the same. Only difference will be a cable connection types. The function is each and every cable gonna carry each and every channel individually. So that is what it's all about. And when it comes to digital cables, so of course you have a digital coaxial cable, so a single cable will carry the multi-channel audio. And what happens is in digital, so there are multiple versions. One is digital coaxial, and then of course the fiber optical, which is a touch link, what they refer as, mainly for the distance. Okay, so if it is a longer distance, people normally use the touch link cable, and the quality almost gonna be the same. And another thing is, in some of the cases, people still I see in actually a couple of installers who actually uses a normal RCA cable, which means a RCA cable to connect it to a digital coaxial input and output. Definitely, that the basic function will definitely work, but the audio quality will be. Sorry for the audio issues, so I'll just connect it back.
Muthaman, audio is fine. You go ahead.
Now it should be fine.
Yeah, it's fine. You go ahead. It's always fine.
Right. Okay. So now the next thing is, sorry, I was talking about the people using analog audio cables for the digital audio. They can actually connect and they can actually get the audio, but the thing is, you will really not actually have the actual audio quality what you are supposed to get on your digital coaxial cable. So that's where you will have issues on the audio quality, right? So it is always recommended to use when it comes to a digital audio, digital coaxial, you always use a digital coaxial cable. Don't use a RCA cable as a digital coaxial cable, because the pin connections or maybe the connectors look the same, but it is actually not. Right. A small example of a small line diagram of the connections, right? So multiple sources. First one is like maybe here I am taken a controller as an audio source, and then you have an audio matrix switch, and then next of course you have a power amplifier, and then at last you will have a speakers which is connected to your power amplifier.
Muthaman's slide has not changed.
Slide is not moving.
It should be okay now, I suppose. Sorry.
It's fine now.
Yeah. Sorry for a lot of issues, guys. So it should be okay. All right. Okay. So the small example I'm explaining about. So one thing is like you have multiple source. Here I've taken as an example as a controller as an example, so which can give multiple audio source. I can take the audio output from the controller and I'm connecting it to a multi-zone audio matrix switch where I can connect it up to 8x8. I'm using it here, and then from the audio matrix switch to the power amplifier. So then from the power amplifier, I'm connecting to the multiple zones of the speakers. Why I am using audio matrix switch here? So audio matrix switch, there are multiple options. One, I can have zoning capability up to 8x8, and all my audio quality and the audio frequency settings, or maybe the dB adjustment, or the or maybe the triple adjustment base. So everything it is better to do always in the. So most of the times you will only do it in the line level, so not actually in the amplified level. So amplified in generally it is mainly for the amplification purpose. Right. So this is actually the basic structure of the audio. So I'm just and the next thing is multi-room and the multi-zone configuration. So what is multi-zone and multi-zone? Okay, so multi-room is nothing but a system that can deliver one source into multiple locations simultaneously, and the multi-zone is a system that can deliver more than one source to the same room. So that is what we always refer as a multi-zone and multi-room.
Sir, notification bar open होगा.
Sorry, sir. Because from my mobile device, actually, it is allowing me to share only the entire device. It is not allowing me to share only the content. So that is where the problem is. Sorry about that. All right. Okay. So multi-room and multi-zone. So when it comes to audio, so the multi-zone is always preferred, right? So the reason is today you might be wiring it as multi-room. So then your customer may ask, when I wanted to watch a movie or maybe a cricket match, at the same time I want to listen some music on the back. Okay, so then what happens? It becomes a single room, but it has to play a multiple source. So that is where you always need to wire it as a multi-zone as a recommendation. That is what it's main thing about here. Okay, so and also when it comes to a multi-zone, so always check your speaker and your audio source and your amplifier audio quality, what it can play, and always wire it accordingly. So maybe if I'm running a manual volume controller or something, so I need to wire it from the speaker to the manual volume controller location, and then from the volume locator location to my rack. So because once you run from the speaker to the rack, definitely it is like a extra job when you wanted to do some manual control or something, right? So plan it at the initial stage, wire it properly. So that is what the recommendation is, right? Of course, if you are doing with automation, definitely you don't have to worry about whether I'm connecting it to the manual controller, volume controller, and other stuffs. But you will not do the all cases as automation. So maybe if I'm doing only audio project, so how do I control it? So that's where I'm talking about the manual volume controller as well. Okay, so and also nowadays, even your stereo amplifier or maybe the stereo speaker can give you a better quality, which means it can play in high resolution and in MQA, and you're gonna get lot many more things from the stereo zones itself. So whenever you are suggesting or whenever you are referring it, you always look for the quality what it is amplifier is supported and what is the maximum it can play. So like whether it gonna play in 192 kilohertz and it can support up to 24 bits of audio, or what is the wattage of your speakers and your amplifier. Okay, so these are small things what we normally need to consider, and the right cable and the right quality. So that's the key, some of the key features when it comes to a multi-room or the multi-zone or any of the audio projects, right? Now the next thing is a small example of a multi-zone connections. Here actually I'm taking a 24 cross 24 audio matrix switch as an example. Okay, so where I'll have multiple sources connected to a 24 cross 24 audio matrix switch, and then from 24 cross 24 audio matrix switch, I have multiple power amplifiers which is connecting and giving it to up to 24 zones. Definitely, I'm going to talk about the products and what it can do, why I'm connecting in this way from the controller and other things. Definitely, we will talk when we talk about the products, right? So that time we will talk more on the products. Now here, the main important thing is concept, right? So how does audio matrix switch and the power amplifier and how the line level audio gets connected, converted to a speaker level. So that's what the main key point here is. Of course, you have multiple source. All the source will give you a line output. And then from, of course, line output, you can directly connect it to the amplifier if it is just a single zone. But if it is a multi-zone, definitely I'm going to connect it to a multi-zone audio matrix switch. And then from the multi-zone audio matrix switch, then to the power amplifier. So this is what the main thing about the audio. And few key things about is audio quality. What is the quality I'm playing in? So what is the quality your amplifier can support? Whether I am running the cable properly from the speaker location to the my rack location. And also in case if I'm using any analog source, for example, I have the digital source, but my amplifier or my audio matrix switch, if it does not take analog input, if you wanted to convert into analog, better use a digital to analog converter, because I still see some of the technicians normally do cut and connect options. Definitely it's gonna not work. It is not the right way to do it, but small things, it is very important to understand, important to not make mistakes, because it must be very much useful for a technician. Because when we see at the site, he will just see as a port, he does not see as a quality, or does not see as a digital, or does not see as analog. So this is what very much important for anybody who does on the audio. So when I'm connecting a digital audio to a analog input, definitely I need a digital to analog converter to convert it, or maybe either analog to digital or digital to analog. Okay, so these are small things you always need to take care on any of the projects. Okay, so that actually concludes basics of our audio. All right, so now the next thing is basics of video. Right, on the video, the main basics, few of the basics. Of course, I'm not going to talk about each and everything in detail. One is your analog video, right? So you have composite video component and VGA, all those things. But of course, most of the things are absolute nowadays. Like even in the digital also, you have like serial digital, DVI, and then HDMI, and then display port. In analog, if you see, almost most of the things are dead nowadays. Okay, so nobody actually gets a device with a composite port or S-video port or VGA nowadays. So everyone talks about the number of HDMI port. So that is what I'm going to actually concentrate on bit, like on HDMI, rather than talking about analog and other things, right? On the digital, so the main thing is, if you see about the serial digital interface, definitely it is not for consumer products. It is mainly for professional products, basically. Like maybe if I'm watching a live movies or somewhere on 4K or something, so the recorder it normally uses a SDA interface to record, which means from the camera, there will be a SDA interface connection. What it can actually do is it can record in 3D, 4K, all the high qualities, whatever it can support. But it is not actually compressed, or it is not actually encrypted video content. So that is actually the reason it is not available for consumer products. So, right, so they normally use a Cat6 or Cat8 cable. Right, so now the next thing is your DVI, so digital visual interface. This is what actually the first device which actually helped to convert into digital platform, right? So because we were talking more on yes video or maybe component, all those things. The main reason for all those getting absolute is the video quality what it can maximum support. So even component nowadays it can maximum support up to 1080p, not more than that. You cannot go 2K or 4K as such, right? But so when it goes to more resolution, so then actually they came up with this DVI, and there is a lot of theory around this why the digital video content has came in. Because if you see in olden days, you might be doing you might have seen or heard about the VCR in your olden days. This VCRs and all, you can like, there is no any restriction on the content. I can copy and I can reproduce the movies. I can do whatever I wanted. So that time actually, as a recorder or maybe a VCR guy, so they'll actually earn the content amount. But when it comes to digital, so they have added this HDCP, which is we will talk about a bit. So the HDCP is the encryption what they are adding along with your audio. Sorry, along with your content. So they added a security for each and every content. So as per the digital policy, you should not actually copy, or you should not allow others to copy. So that is the reason. So like your storages, your Blu-ray players, your Blu-ray changes, so everything going out, right? So that is what the main impact is, right? I think now it should be okay. So it's all back now. So power and everything is up, and okay, right. Okay, sorry. Right. Okay. So how the HDMI becomes so popular? So the main reason is the added audio into the video itself. So that is actually the another key point for HDMI to become more successful, and that is where the DVI actually loosed out, because even DVI can nowadays play about the same quality what your HDMI is playing, right? So either it is 4K or maybe the all the content whatever it can actually support. So the main thing they did, more resolution or more HDCP policies with all the content makers. So that becomes more easy for HDMI to rule over all the market in generally. Okay, HDMI becomes so popular, right? So a small configuration on the HDMI cable side, right? So if you refer any of the HDMI, or maybe if you Google it as a HDMI cable, you will not actually see a color of your uh, videos. Like, so they won't mention anywhere RGB, and also there won't be any audio separately. So there will be no audio input, audio output, nothing will be actually there, right? So now the thing is, like, so all your content is actually encrypted using a transmission minimized differential signal. So which means for each and every color there is a TMDS, right? And in the same TMDS, they actually embedded your audio also. There is no separate audio cable in your HDMI. So this becomes pain when you wanted to play stereo audio. Maybe if I have a box or maybe a player which can play only in HDMI, if I wanted to convert into analog audio, so I really won't be able to do it because there is no any direct tool to, or maybe a cable to extract it from, right? Still seeing some audio issues, or is it okay?
Okay, sir. बराबर.
Right. Okay. So some of the key things about the HDMI. So one of the thing is they did something called EDID. Okay. So external display identification data. So which means whenever I connect any source, what is the resolution my source can play and what is the resolution your display can play. Okay. And then of course your whenever I connect any HDMI source to a display, the first thing is my source will actually send authentication. Like there will be a 5-volt cable in your HDMI. So if you have a source which is connected, which is powered, your source will send a 5-volt trigger to a display, and the display will send the information whatever it wanted for the HDMI. So it will say this is what my resolution is, this is what I can play. If you can support that resolution, definitely you can get it back. So that's what the basics of any HDMI, right? And also if you see in your HDMI, so there is no any like a cable or maybe a connector which ensures which is connected. They use actually a 21 pin which is called as hard plug detect. So if you see any HDMI cable, one of that pin will be like in deep. Okay, so which means so it ensures all the other ports which is are connected. Okay, so there is no any digital authentication as such unless HDCP ensures it is content is okay and it can play. Right, and the next thing is HDCP. So this is actually the content production for your digital, right? So this have lot many things around it. Okay, one is your encryption. Okay, and each and every source and display has to support that HDCP, then only it can play. Maybe a year back, if you have any HDMI source connected to a display, it is very easily it can actually say that there is no signal. Okay, because I cannot actually troubleshoot my HDMI like how I do with analog, and it'll just say no signal. Most of the time you will not really know what is the actual reason. Sometimes changing a cable works, sometimes changing a source works, sometimes display works. The main reason is your HDCP. So what is the content you are playing, and what is the display you are using, and what is the source which plays your content. So it all has to be HDCP authenticated. So that is why they had this HDMI LLC lab where it actually test cross-platform test, which means any manufacturer can test their products and get it to see whether it works and supports all the HDCP. And previously they had this HDCP limitation also, which means maximum how many I can distribute. Like you can distribute up to 16 displays or maybe 124 displays. So it depends on each and every manufacturer. Now they are like with the latest version, of course, they are changed it bit, like they have opened up to 126 for most of the sources. But yes, it's all actually the algorithm what the HDCP are behind, and all your content, right? Like maybe if I can download a movie, the first thing it'll ask you is, right, so whether you are authorized, which means, for example, if I'm downloading or maybe if I'm recording a HD content in my Tata Skybox and I wanted to play it in some other HD content, other Tata Skybox which can support HD, but it will not allow you to play. The reason is HDCP. And if I copy the Blu-ray from one Blu-ray player to another Blu-ray player, then again you will have an issue. So then again it is not actually a digital authorized, which means it is not HDCP compliant. And even your presentation, even your any content, whatever you are preparing, you can actually enable HDCP in it. Okay, so even if I make a presentation, I can just restrict only to myself. So all the contents nowadays become more digital and more encrypted. The reason is your content, one is security, so that's what they say. And another thing is whenever, for example, if I make a movie, so it is very easy nowadays coming into a digital platform. So you have an option which is called as rent, right? So that is again from your HDCP, right? So and you can have an option to download. You will have an option to rent. So even your old contents are getting upgraded to a digital to add up with this HDCP. So that is what it's all about. Okay. And also another thing is nowadays nobody uses a storage to store thousands of movie and watch it whenever they want it. It's very rare nowadays becoming, like, so everyone do Netflix, Fire Stick, so Amazon Prime, YouTube. So it's all become more digital nowadays. So it is mainly the HDCP revolution. That's what they refer as, right? And in your HDMI, so the next thing they have added is something called CEC, which is Consumer Electronic Control. Okay, what is this Consumer Electronic Control does? Just for example, if I powered all my devices, if I just play a DVD button, it turns on my Blu-ray player, and then it turns on my AV receiver, then my TV, and then it switches the input to the particular input, whatever it is playing in, and then of course it switches your AV receiver, and then of course your content will start playing. This is very much okay when I do with a single source, single display. What happens when I have multiple devices with CEC enabled? So how does it actually help out? For example, I'm watching from Blu-ray player, I'm changing it to Tata Sky. Then your Tata Sky also will try to enable the same CEC. And there is lot many things around it. And this becomes more trouble when it comes to automation, right? So sometimes I'll see my device is getting turned on by itself after a firmware update, right? This kind of will happen mainly because of your CEC. And this they call it as a one-touch operation, one-touch play. So, but the CEC is not actually a full version. So sometimes it works, sometimes it will not. And most of the time they tested with the off command in almost 99% of the device it will work, but very few devices it won't actually work as well, right? So that's why we always say use your CEC in our automation environment. So that's what we actually doing, right? And some of the limitation in your HDMI. So one is your audio breakout. So maybe if I wanted a stereo audio, how do I play it? And then distance limitation, right? So as per 4K standard, so they say maximum is 10 meters, right? So how do I extend it for more distance? And even when I add the repeater also, they'll say not more than 2 repeaters or the 2 extenders, right? So there is lot many things around it as well on the limitation. And supporting your analog videos, right? So again, you need to convert all your analog sources to a digital, and then you need to play. And testing and troubleshooting for HDMI is like when everything is okay, it works. If it not, it won't actually work, right? So that's what it is all about on the HDMI. And when it distribution, so maybe if I want to do display one sources into multiple location, and definitely you will have issues, right? So how do I handle the HDCP key, and how is the distance it's gonna affect? So these all gonna be there a pain when it comes to a distribution of your HDMI content. Okay, so definitely we're going to talk about a bit on how do we distribute, what is the technology in the next which is actually came in. So before I jump into that, so just a small review on the AV receivers. Okay, so most of the times when it comes to automation, so if I am not a home theater or if I'm not a AV receiver guy, so definitely automation person, what they think is, if I put everything into the automation platform, the things started working by itself. Definitely it won't. Okay, so we always say configure your AV receiver, fine tune your AV receiver, and do it correctly manually, and then take it into automation. So that's how it will work. So that is what the easy way of doing it, right? So the purpose of AV receiver is, of course, I'm really not uh, don't have to talk about much. Definitely. So one of the main purpose is your audio signal processing. So either it is 5.1 or maybe whatever the audio surround systems, whatever you are actually planning it for, and then AV switching and the amplification, right?
As you said about the HDMI cable, there are two types of cable. One is directional, second is non-directional. Or then which cable is better to get high resolution and
Okay, so questions, please, we will keep it last, or you can actually mail it, because so we have more people, so everyone will try to interact between each, so that will become more like kind of be a trouble. Okay, and the main thing is we always say use any of the home theater designing tool and design the AV receiver, and then you actually take it into automation, and don't like just go and suggest something to your customer without a proper knowledge about the AV receiver. Because when I'm a home automation guy, if I'm a lighting person or maybe a security person, it is easy for a customer to approach me for to handle their home theater also, right? But the main thing is a knowledge. So you really don't have to be go in depth to the knowledge, but definitely don't suggest something as a like if you put 5.1 you will have a better sound. So definitely it is not that way, right? So you need to have what is the distance, what is the maximum capacity, so how do you design it? So use any of the softwares which is available, or maybe a lot of free courses, lot many things which is available. Have a basic idea about it, so then you actually suggest it. So that will be like very much useful for any of your customers. And on automation perspective, so few of the things on the AV receiver we always recommend. So one thing is tune your audio video settings manually, and then in some cases you might need to configure your AV receiver to static IP, or even DHCP reservation is fine. And always, if you wanted to integrate, we always say enable IP control to be on. So that is very much important and very much needed for the automation. So this is actually the key thing, but key thing for automation, not on actually the AV receiver or the home theater side. So definitely that will be like a different session altogether, right? If I go into technologies, right? So that is actually your AV receiver and the settings, which is what we recommended. And the next is the multi-room video concept, right? So when we had the issues with the distance limitations and all those things on your HDMI, so definitely they need to find out a different way to do it, right? So that's where they have actually came up with this HD-based technology. Okay, so this technology will actually help you to send audio, video, and also Ethernet control signal, and also the power to your receiver, everything from a single Cat6 cable. So they wanted to utilize the existing infrastructure, and they have invented this HD-based technology. So that's how it normally works, right? So here, what is the advantage I can get is I can run up to 300 meters, sorry, 100 to 150 meters, and you will have you are actually most of the HD-based manufacturers, most of the HD-based video matrix device manufacturers, what they did is they give an option to extract your digital audio to analog audio as well. So there, one thing is distance limitation, which is solved, and another thing is extracting the audio. But how do I do that? So that's where they have used this Cat6 as a option. Right. So I'm just going to run through a basic infrastructure, which means the basic connectivity of how HD-based system works. So I'm taking control for video matrix, HD-based video matrix as an example. So I have Blu-ray player and a TV, which we need to be connected for a longer distance. So if I don't have the option to connect it to the longer distance, definitely I'm going to change it to a HD-based solution. One is your HD-based receiver, and then another one is HD-based, one is your HD-based matrix switch, and the next one is your HD-based receiver, right? So I have a source which will be connected to my video matrix, and then from the video matrix, I'll run a Cat6, which means I'll maybe a existing Cat6 infrastructure, and then I can actually connect it to a receiver and then to a TV, right? So this is just like a conversion of your HDMI signal to a Cat6 signal and then extracting it back. So that's what the HD-based technology is main about. Right, so this takes audio, video, and then of course along with it, so a small example of what and all it actually does. This will actually give you a audio output as well. So which means I can extract the analog audio from this. Right, so I'm taking a 10x10, so it gives me a 10 audio extract output. Even if I connect a HDMI source, I can extract the stereo audio and I can play it in. Right, and it also helps you do a networking pass through, and then IR and RS-232 pass through. So it solves almost most of your critical purpose of your HDMI solution, what and all it actually had. Right, so this is actually your HD-based receiver where you can connect the HD-based and take the HDMI output and connect it to TV. Right, so along with it, what and all it does, so that I showed about audio and extracting, just a small representation. So how, for example, if I wanted to control a basic Blu-ray player, so normally what I'll do is I'll run a IR cable, right? So from the controller to a Blu-ray player. Now, how do I control a TV? So again, I need to run an IR cable from the controller to TV, right? So when you have this video matrix, what it actually does is it will give you like a IR pass through. So I can connect the IR to the video matrix and then take the IR output from the receiver and I can connect it to my TV. So I can use the same HD-based infrastructure and I can do the control as well. This is for IR or maybe RS-232 as well, right? And then of course, the next thing is your network. Right, so if I just connect a network input to my video matrix, definitely, so even your IP, so this will actually assign the IP by itself, which means it can do the IP switch, which means it is actually a built-in network switcher as well. So I can take the HD LAN and connect it to a TV, or maybe I can connect it to a small access point at the other end. I can actually make it work as well. So that's what the capability of your HD-based technology. And it is not only a control for video metrics does this, the basic concept remains the same. So maybe the configuration and other things, definitely they'll have their own way of doing it, right? So the one thing is your source network switch, and it takes care of your video conversion to Cat6 to a HDMI, and then of course your IR control and your networking pass through. So all things can happen through your video metrics itself. Okay, so now the next thing is, we talked about this video, EDID information, right? So what is the data, or what is the resolution it can play on each and every device? When I have one source, one display, I can easily know. So this is 4K my TV can play, maybe 4K my source can play, so it is okay to go ahead, right? But what happens when I have in this kind of video matrix infrastructure, when I'm using a video matrix, right? So here what will happen is your HD-based video matrix switch will act as a EDID manager. So, and what it can actually do is, it will read all your source and all your display EDID information. And what it can actually do is, it will always play a lowest, which means a common denominator. So for example, if I have a TV 1080p, but if I have a source which can play in 4K, or if I have another TV which can play in 4K, but your TV can only play in 1080p, all the TVs. Okay, so to avoid those things, definitely we have introduced something called zone and source locking, and definitely this feature is there. So each and every manufacturer will have their own way of doing it. So if I do source or zone locking, so then what we can actually do is, so whenever I lock the source, it can play in that full resolution, but that time the other low resolution devices cannot actually access the same source what is playing in 4K. Right, so HD-based technology itself, it is limited. It is like one in, one out. So which means, so if it won't do both upscaling and downscaling at the same time. All right, so that is actually a main problem on the HD-based, right? So when I do source locking, so whenever I watch it, it can watch it in that particular room. Or if I do zone locking, so whenever I'm watching in that particular room, so I can play at the maximum resolution. So that time other people won't be able to access it. But if I turn off the main room, so other rooms also can get access to the 1080, the lowest resolution what they wanted to watch it. Okay, so that is actually a good feature of the source, which means maybe if I spend a lakhs of rupees for the home theater, I want to watch it in 4K. But if it does not play in 4K, then definitely there is a problem, right? So, and also I cannot ask everything to be 4K supported from my customer. Right, so that's my HD-based. And the next thing is, of course, on the video, there is a lot of technologies which is changing around. So the next one is actually like a media over IP, right? So the media over IP is like it's actually the next version of your video transmission option. So we're using your network switch as a video matrix switch instead of using a video matrix switcher and other things. Okay, so just a comparison between your traditional video matrix and your AV over IP, how does it works? So you'll have a transmitter, and then of course you will have a video matrix, and then of course you will have a receiver. And the next thing is you will have, but in AV over IP, you will have an encoder, and of course you will have a decoder, encoder and the decoder, but I'll be using my backbone as a network switch. Okay, so maybe we will recommend to go for a layer 2 or layer 3 switch, mainly for the data transmission range. But so in this, the main advantage is, for example, I really don't have to depend on number of inputs and outputs. I can add it at any time, right? So for example, if I have a 8x8 HD-based video matrix, I am restricted only to use 8 in, 8 out. Okay, even if I'm not using 8 source, I need to buy 8x8, right? So it becomes I can connect 4 source and then 8 displays. And maybe if I wanted to add the 9th display, definitely there is no solution, right? So I cannot actually change my entire video matrix. But this AV over IP solution will actually help you. Like I can add I can just buy only transmitter and the receiver, my additional zone is done, right? So based on my inputs and based on my outputs. So that is what it is actually about. So I'm just taking a reference of my video matrix, AV over IP MIP device. Right, so one thing is, we always say your network switch, it has to be layer 2 switch, okay? And we wanted you to connect or maybe put a dedicated network switch for MIP system. The main reason is your bandwidth. So it needs actually, if you are doing multiple.
Audible.
Is it fine? Still issues. Sorry guys. So there is few people. It's keep on coming saying that there is no
Fine.
audio.
Good.
So sorry.
Fine.
Right. Sorry. Okay. So the main element is your network switch. And definitely the next one is we call it as a MIP controller. So this is to manage your entire MIP system. This is we always recommend for per project, and where it can make your configuration, input, output, everything actually it will help you in smoother way. And the next thing is the transmitter, which is based on your number of inputs, and the receiver, which is based on number of your outputs, which means your displays. Okay, so if I have 6 source, 10 displays, which means 6 transmitter and 10 receiver, and it all need to be connected to a network switch and my controller. That's what it actually needed, right? And everybody will have their own way of it. So which means the difference will be the controller and the configuration, right? So the connectivity so will be everything to the network switch, and it's all PoE enabled, so it is you can directly plug in and play out, right? So and you'll have multiple source and then definitely multiple displays based on your inputs and the outputs, right? So again, it all needs to be connected to your network switch, okay? And that's what your my system configuration is, okay? So because people nowadays moving more towards this rather than your traditional video over HDMI HD based video metric solutions, right? Because this is the feature. So this is it can do same 4K HDR, all the same resolutions, and each and every transmitter receiver as the audio output, IR pass throughs, LAN output, so everything as what actually your HD based had, and it gives you like a feel of like removing my video metrics and giving it as a another option for your video distribution, right? And we do also support something called a video wall configuration as well. So you really don't have to have a video wall encoder or video wall things to be done. So you just need to connect multiple receivers and just connect one source. And in your configuration, you just need to enable it. So once you enable, definitely it's gonna be like a video wall, and it gives you bezel adjustment, height, width, all those things are very much possible. Okay, and main thing is few configuration which needs to be done in your L2 switch. So that is what very much important is, and which means each and every input, each and every source actually required up to 900 megabits of data. So 900 Mbps of local transmission. So this is only between switch and the MIP. It is nothing to do with your internet or ISP, right? So if your switch is fine, L2 switch, and which means it can support each and every in and out, it can do one, which means up to 1 gig. So then I am very much good to do. And why we are not saying put everything into a single switch is, if I do another switch, maybe if I have 10 sources on switch one, if I wanted to switch all the 10 sources to the source, which means another switch, then you need an uplink of that switch to be a 10 gigabit switch, which means, so then only you can actually do that. So that is the reason we always say, have a switch and all your transmitters, encoders and decoders connected to a single switch. And if you have 10 gig uplink, definitely you can connect it to a next switch as well, right? So that's the whole summary about audio and video, right? And definitely, so I think I might have touch based most of the basics, right? So what is audio, what is video, what is where and where we are right now, and that's definitely each and every topic will actually go like a lot many things. Each and every topic which can go for a day or two, it is a lot of depth into it. I'm really not going into it, right? So that's where, so we just wanted to get into that feel of what you need to understand all the concept, right? So now the next thing is, of course, lighting basics, right? Definitely it is from a two pillars, like, so you're from audio video, and if you are learning lighting, so it will be like, I'm not going to do that. Or it is the same way, like, yeah, lighting guy, if I talk about audio video, so this is not me, right? But definitely this is, it has to be for automation guys, so you need to get hands on or touch base with each and everything. And I cannot always say expect somebody to like do this, right? So I need to have some basics, right? Okay, so now the next thing is lighting basics. Okay, so on the lighting basics, first one is load types, right? So on the load types, please, if you are unmuting yourself, it will be like more of interruption. Please don't do that. All right. So load types. Okay. So definitely it will your incandescent and then CFL and then halogen and then of course the transformer based loads. There are a lot many things which is available, but nowadays everything is moving more towards LEDs, right? So that's what I'm gonna concentrate on a bit. Okay. So on our automation platform, right? So most of your LEDs are basically a dimmable. So it depends really on the driver. Okay, so what is the LED and the driver it is actually coming along with. And if your driver is non-dimmable, definitely you can actually dim. So you might need to consider. And on the LEDs, you might be seeing there is a lot of issues around, right? So the dimming range issues, or maybe the depth travel, or maybe it dims from only certain percentage. And it is very rare to see a LED which can dim from 0 to 100. Some dimmers can do, some LEDs can do from 30% to 60% fine, and then it'll go to 0, 100%, right? So this becomes more kind of trouble. And this is because of one thing of the advantage of the LED is it's very less energy consumption device. So almost most of them are moving towards LED. And even basic homes or basic bulbs are actually changing into LEDs. I'll not have issues of like they are giving like 10 years, 20-year warranty for the LEDs, and energy consumption is very much low. So that consumes more energy, right? And then your dimming capabilities mainly depends on your performance and the loads. And in fact, I myself seen it in some of the cases from same manufacturer, same spec, same LEDs, but couple of LEDs works fine and couple of them does not work fine. The dimming range is not in the same as this one. So we always say if you have any LEDs, better get them bunch of LEDs and test. So that is what the main thing is. All right. Some of the issues, it is not actually I will say as a disadvantage, but some of the issues as one is dimming range, and then after if it is turned off, also there will be electricity leak, which means a power leak. It gives you something, and then issues with the main on the max on between the values, and then flickering at the low levels, and then of course when you do the dimming the audio level varies. So these are small things which will actually give you a lot of issues in your LED projects. So that is the reason we always say when you have any loads, you get some bunch of load and test the LEDs. Even if it is the same manufacturer, same brand, same load, you just don't take only one load and test it. So you request from 4 or 5 loads and check whether it all works uniformly. So then of course you can confirm, because there is no any actually a standard as such. This LED has to be gone in this way, like how others are, how CFL has done. So this is not the same way for LEDs basically. So everybody have their own standard. Some of them works very well, some of them does not, some of them like, so it's better always to test and configure the LEDs. And if your LED is non-dimmable, definitely you would need a driver or a driver which can actually takes care of your dimming based on your wattage, whatever you are actually using, right? So that we will actually talk about when we talk about the control options of the control option for the LEDs. All right. Okay, so that's actually the types of loads. And then next one is your dimming technologies. Right. So very first and the basic dimming technology, I think everyone might be knowing about it. So the one is your phase cut dimming, right? What is phase cut dimming? How does it works? All right. So normally I'll control my low power, what it actually goes, which means directly whatever the loads I have actually connected in. Right. So if I'm dimming, so my wave, which means, for example, so your electricity flows as a sine wave, right? So
Tamil, no audio.
Should be okay now?
Yeah, let's. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so if I'm dimming it, so definitely, so the dimming cycle will get affected. So which means whenever maybe if I'm dimming for a 50%, so my cycle first off will go off, and then maybe the based on your dimming technology, whatever actually you are dimming in, right? So even in the dimming phase cut dimming itself, there are something called forward phase dimming, which is called as leading edge dimming. And leading edge dimming is like very uncommon in our kind of regions. Okay, so where it uses the magnetic coil for dimming technology. And so forward phase dimming is nothing but your cycle first off, which means from 0 it starts, it is called as forward phase. And then it starts from 180, it is always actually called as a reverse phase dimming. So that's what it is actually, right? So some of the advantages, so it is mainly good for your resistive loads like incandescent and other loads, and also inductive loads. And then reverse phase dimming is very much common, like it is widely used in our kind of regions like Asian, European, and other countries. And if I say it is a reverse phase dimming, so your second half, which means it starts from 180 to dim basically. So it is mainly good for resistive loads or capacitive loads like fluorescents and LEDs basically, right? So and most of your dimmers actually do support adaptive phase dimming, but we always say whenever you are connecting a load, and your dimmer will actually ensure whether you are connecting a forward or reverse phase load, but connect actually a same type of load, because some dimmers might not actually support, or some dimmers might not actually say you what is the type of load you are actually connected. And if you are connecting a forward phase and the reverse phase in a single circuit, and if you are mixing it, at present it may work, and then maybe after 6 months, your device may go bad, or your lighting circuit may go bad. So we always say, so connect the right loads, and if you're connecting forward phase, connect all the things to your forward phase load. So or if it is a reverse phase, connect everything to a reverse phase. So that is what very much important is basically. Right. And other than phase cut dimming, so definitely a lot of other dimming technologies as well. So we will talk about that as well. Before that, some of the fundamentals, right? So the one is, what is the load limits, how much I can actually connect to a device. Okay, so most of your dimmers, they might actually return with the wattage maximum it can support, but you need to consider although some of the other factors as well. One is how much the heat it is actually dissipating. Okay, so if your heat dissipates, definitely your wattage will reduce of the device. And also your electromagnetic interference. Okay, so how does it actually going to handle that as well? So based on that only, actually your loading wattage may differ, may affect. And some of the dimmers actually will give you a warning as well. So if I'm connecting a overloadage or maybe under voltage, all those things basically. And also your dimmer's minimum wattage, it's really based on your current leakage to the load. Okay, so how much your load can handle. So if your load cannot actually handle, definitely there will be a problem. So you will have, after if you turned off also, you'll be like on the dimming range. And some of your dimmers also. Yeah, someone please.
There seems to be audio issue, so just check with quality once. I think we can hear you right now. Please go ahead.
Is it all fine? Fine now?
Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, fine.
Okay. And then on the dimming, actually, so we have something called, not only we, so most of the dimmers actually can do something called switching leg. So which is very similar like your a common switch, a normal manual switch. Okay, so where it can connect only the phase and it can only switch the phase, where we can actually work with the new without a neutral. And in this kind of cases, definitely you need to consider lower the wattage than what you will actually connect with neutral, because your leakage will be more in this, right? And so these are few things we need to consider when we considering about the phase cut dimming. So one is the load definitely, and what is the maximum wattage and what is the minimum wattage, and whether I'm connecting with phase and neutral or without phase and neutral, and what is the minimum wattage and the maximum wattage and the heat dissipation on your dimmers. Right. So the next thing on the loads, more than adaptive phase dimming. So what are the other dimming options? Right. So it is referred as a control signal dimming. So which means there is multiple ways to dim. So either it is an analog dimming technology or digital dimming technology or multiple ways. Right. So first one, so this is actually phase cut dimming option. So where you will control the phase directly. And the next one is your analog dimming. Right. So when we say analog dimming, so not only analog, even digital dimming. So all those things are actually using something called control signal dimming options. Or definitely they'll not actually control the load, where you will use a ballast or maybe a driver to control it. So what are the technologies which is available for that? One is 0 to 10 volt definitely. And then of course a DALI or maybe a DSI, which is very low, very less known actually. So these are multiple options to dim as a control signal dimming options. Okay, so we'll talk a bit about a 0 to 10 volting option. So 0 to 10 volt dimmer, definitely, of course, your 0 to 10 volt dimming device definitely will not work your phase cut dimming. So that is just a small reference, right? And along with your phase and neutral, definitely you will have a 0 and 10. So which means actually a control signal dimming technology. Okay. In some cases, you might be seeing a 1 volt ballast dimming as well. So whatever the dimming range you are doing, so that actually depends on your ballast. Okay. If your ballast supports only 1 to 10 volt dimming, definitely you need to have a relay to turn it off, because it will dim only from 0 to 10. So 0 is 0 and 10 is 100. So it just analog calculates it by itself. Okay. So if I'm using a 1 to 10 volt ballast, dimming ballast, normally it is widely available in the market because there will be a price difference between 0 to 10 volt and then 1 to 10 volt. So if it is a 1 to 10 volt, you need a external relay to cut off your power. Right. So that's actually a keynote. So in some case, people buys a 1 to 10 volt ballast and then install, because this sometimes go to a customer scopes. They'll say install ballast, I install dimmable ballast. So then I'll put a 1 to 10 volt then I put a dimmer. So then my dimmer has to handle that 0 to 10 volt. Right. So if it is 0 to 10 volt, that's fine. If it is 1 to 10 volt, I need to have an external relay to turn it off. Right. So more than your analog dimming, so there are multiple ways. One is DALI and DSI, so digital signal dimming, what it is referred as. Each and every ballast or the driver will have their own module and their own address where it takes responsible for control. And this is widely used for a larger cases like hospitality projects or a bigger, more number of circuits and other things. Right. So of course your 0 to 10 volt dimmer will not actually work on this case. You would really need a DALI module to control, or maybe if it is a DSA module, DSA integration option has to be there for the module to be controlled, right? And the last but not least one on the dimming, so one is your DMX control, right? So definitely we don't directly integrate with DMX, or maybe even for the DALI also we have control for KNX DALI, so we don't have direct DALI integrated with control 4. Okay, so your DMX module can connect it to your DMX network. And then, of course, you need to have a third-party interface which can integrate into Control 4 platforms. So DMX is widely common for your LEDs, which means color changing LEDs and other stuffs, right? And last point is don't use a motorized device like fans or motors or any of these devices to a dimmers. Actually, it will actually spoil your dimmer or even your motor. Okay, even though some of the dimmers you can use it as a switching module, but definitely there will be a latency on switching, right? So that will actually spoil your motor. Okay, so in this kind of cases, definitely you need to use a switching module, which means a relay module, or maybe a Z2IO, or maybe a contactor actuator, which can actually control your motorized devices. Right. On the lighting basics, definitely. So we have something called centralized lighting. So what is this centralized lighting is where you can actually pull all your lighting circuit to the centralized location and where you can control everything together. And it makes it very much easy for you to, if you are designing the project at the initial stage, definitely if it is an existing case, you will have a lot of issues actually doing around it. And a small traditional wiring, a small comparison. So how does it normally works? So if I have the wireless dimmer or maybe a traditional wiring, so of course you will have from circuit breaker, it goes to your dimmer or the switch, and then of course it goes to multiple circuits. Right, so here what happens is when if you have more number of circuits or more number of loads to be connected in a single location, so I can put and change it to a centralized module, right? So how does that works here is like you will have a circuit breaker and then you will have your lighting panel, so centralized lighting panel. And then from the panel, so you will be having your modules connected. So then from the modules, you'll be connecting all your loads. And of course, for this kind of cases, you'll have a separate wired keypad versions from the control 4 as well, or maybe a wireless also can work. So there are some limitations on this, right? We will talk about that as well. And in centralized lighting, some of the key points, one is most of our wired keypad, not most, almost all the wired keypads of control 4 have something called failover modes. So if the system goes offline, it can actually recover by itself. It can play around. So even my controller goes off, I can call certain scenes from my wired keypad. So and you can pre-program it to call whatever the circuits you actually wanted to control. And you can use the manual switch also to turn it on, turn it off, which means it has auxiliary input on the each and every module. And also even the module also have the local overrides where you can actually control. Right, and I'll just show you a small reference of wiring. And in our automation cases, most of the times what happens is if it is a lighting project, if it is centralized lighting also, so even any manufacturer, any centralized lighting concepts, the biggest thing is we don't actually consider much about the terminal blocks, right? So because it just does, I can connect it from the circuit breaker to the module, then it's gonna work. But your circuit breaker will help you your wiring neat and clean, and you will know which goes where from your circuit terminal block itself. So we always say put a terminal block. You don't have to put a control for terminal block. You just put any third party block as well. That's fine. But your wiring will make neat and clean, and it will be easy for you to troubleshoot in future. So that is very much feasible when I'm doing with the terminal blocks. Okay, and so the terminal block wiring, this is mainly for safety. Okay, so on wiring case, the first thing is from your circuit breaker to the terminal block. So maybe your phase and then neutral, sorry, ground and then neutral, and then definitely your phase. And then from your terminal block to the module, like phase, ground, neutral, and the phase, right? And when it comes to module wiring, so of course, again, you will be taking it back from your module to the terminal block, and you will be connecting all like the same, like ground and then neutral. And some of the modules which might have mentioned with line 1 and line 2, so all my control 4 modules actually it all from the same line. Maybe you can go it from the different circuit breaker, but it is all the same line. So it is not a single phase, or it is not a 3-phase device or a 2-phase device. It's all a single phase device. Right. So wiring from your module, and then of course wiring to the load, and then your auxiliary inputs and outputs for the main switch. So this is a small key wiring. And if you really wanted to know more details about the lighting, so there is a lighting designing guide also. So I'll share it with after the presentation with along with the video, so that you can go through everything from the, you will have more understanding on what is the loads, what is hybrid solutions, what is centralized solution, what is decentralized solutions, everything in general, right? So definitely after your lighting modules, so because all the modules will go into your lighting panel, so how do I control it? So the wired keypad family, so what I was actually talking about. So we have the wiring keypad option like Square, Decora, and also the third-party integration keypads option as well. So my wired keypad works on RS485 bus communication. So all your wired keypad will get terminated to my bus Ethernet gateway. And then from bus Ethernet gateway, you will have the IP connection. So IP connection is to ensure to communicate with all your keypads, and also the lighting modules. right? So we have wide range of color options as well, like face plates and other variations. So we'll talk about that when we talk about the products, right? And on the wiring keypad, right? When wiring the keypad, so what is the cables which is recommended? Okay, so it actually uses a pair of 18 American wire gauge and a pair of 24 American wire gauge. I think it is more like KNX, Lutron, most of the widely common used 4-core communication. So it's a RS485 same, so it should be the same thing, right? And one of the important thing is don't use cat cables. Okay, so why we say this don't use cat cable is the main reason is because of the latency. So when you have more number of keypads, if it is more than 20 keypads per gateway, so you will see a latency and the communication. So like sometimes it goes up to like 500 to 1 millisecond, sorry, 1 seconds, 500 millisecond to 1 second. So that actually kind of causes pain for the control, right? So that's where the problem is, right? Okay, so in case if I have the case which is running Cat 6 with a very less number of keypads, because it is very calm and very easy to tell an electrician to pull a Cat 6 cable rather than, because if I say a 4-core cable with this specification, definitely you'll be seeing what is the cable next, and you need to give them a cable. If you're not giving the cable, so if you're running them, if it is running by them already, so you can actually connect it to, you can connect it to via Cat 6 also, but use this kind of configuration like 3 pair for power and then just a pair for a data communication. All right, and this is actually a small line explanation of how a wired keypad can work on the environment. So we recommend not more than 40 keypads per bus Ethernet gateway, and the maximum distance is limited to 1000 meters, 1000 feet, which is 300 to 330 meters. All right, and also we have something called a dry contacts. What is this dry contact can actually do? So you can use any of your third-party keypads if it is a push button. Maybe if somebody really don't wanted to like have their automation, so they wanted to use their same existing switch, or maybe they have the some of the other switches which can look better and which can be used it for their home, so they can actually use it any of those kind of switches, and they can connect it to a like as an input module. They can use it to control. So that is actually the another option for integrating with the lighting modules, right? So this is what your communication connection will be. So all the bus Ethernet gateway, and then your wide keypad, and then of course your DCAM module. So which means input module, we call it as the input module will also get connected to your bus Ethernet gateway.
Muthammad, can
Right?
you talk on the fail safe on the panelized lighting? There's a question from Joban. So,
Yes,
what is
please.
fail safe?
Okay, so what my dimmers actually does is, so we will operate on MOSFET, so which actually fails when you connect it to a fan regulators, as not the regulators, directly to the fan. Sometimes it get overheat because of it cannot handle that MOSFET, and it'll get overheat. Sometimes it does not work, and or even your dimming range does not be the same. What happens is your fan actually does a step dimming, and your dimmers actually does not do a step dimming. So it's like 20, 40 or whatever it is. But your dimmers, they really don't actually do that. It always go from 0 to 100. But your fan does not actually operate in that way. And most of the fans, definitely it is actually works on a reverse phase, but it is actually not 0 to 100 volt dimming. So that is what the main issue is. Uh, and some of the dimmer modules, like from some others, it can actually do. So they have overridden option for that MOSFET failure, but we don't have that feature. So definitely we don't recommend using it. Okay, so the lighting summary. So what and all we have gone through. So the first is load types, and then of course your dimming choices, and then what is the type I'm gonna planning it for, whether I'm gonna planning it as a decentralized which means a wireless option of control for, or maybe a centralized option, or maybe a hybrid option. So whatever the options I really planning it, and then your modules and the terminal blocks and the panel. So what are the whether how many dimming circuits and what is the dimming technology. So based on that, I need to suggest the module and the panel, and then definitely at the last your user interface control. Right, and also placing the user interface sometimes. Okay, so don't place it like at the entrance. Don't place it at the 2 feet height, and maybe at the bedroom or maybe bedside. Don't place it at the 5 feet height. So because this kind of things, normally when someone asks, we say put it at the 4 feet or the 5 feet. They just like put it everywhere at the same. Okay, so that will really not look good. Okay, so place it at the right position and the right location also. Okay, so don't use the keypad where really not used. Okay, if it is a passage, don't put too many keypads around the passage. Okay, so maybe at the entrance or maybe the exit, I'll actually use the keypad or maybe a dimmer also. Okay, so placement is very much important on the lighting. Right, and so that's actually concludes your lighting basics. And then is comfort and security. Definitely we are not actually going into more on comfort and security side, so which means we are actually integrating most of the things with the third party. Right, what and all we are integrating with. So before we talk about what and all we are integrating with, few things to know about. One is your relay and another one is your contact. Contact is nothing but actually a input device, we call it as like push button, sensors or any of the things, and relay is actually an output device which can trigger the output, whether it is a low voltage or the high voltage. Right, a small example for a contact. So maybe if I press something, so it triggers, closes the signal, so and it will send you information to the controller to do certain actions. I can program it to do any actions. And the next thing is your relay. Right, so I can actually do control sending the output, maybe a projector screen or any of the devices. Some of the example for contacts and relays like smoke detectors or maybe a garage door sensor or maybe a door contact sensor or a push button or a glass break sensors. And for the relays, definitely like a fountains or a sprinklers or maybe a fireplace or a blinds. So all these things can be connected to a relays, which means the devices which sends the signal output. Right, and on the security, so then of course you can integrate with the surveillance cameras and the NVRs. Okay, and on the surveillance, we say it is a surveillance, which means it can monitor outside, and the security is the devices which can monitor inside. So your sensors and all will be referred as a security device, and your cameras and other things we normally refer it as a surveillance. Okay, so don't just say as a security, but it is security for the customer, but there is a difference between both. So right, so you can integrate with most of the cameras, NVRs, and most of your NVRs can do privacy masking, third-party streaming. So you need to check on all those aspects, and definitely we can integrate with most of the security panels as well. Like you will have the same UI of your security panels what you have in a touch panel or your user interface. And why? Because most of the time people will ask us, it is a security panel and it is automated already, because most of the security panels they'll say as an automation panel, right? But what is the difference they can do with control 4 or maybe any automation system or any home automation system is they can actually have trigger the event of your automation. Maybe I can, if it sends a smoke, I can turn on my light, or maybe I can flash my light, or maybe I can check, I can do an announcement in my audio device. So these small things actually you cannot actually do only from the security panel. Security panel will be connected to a router, so whatever something goes wrong, it will definitely give you a warning or maybe a fire emergency calling or what are the panic solutions you are programming it for. So when we do it with automation, so you'll have more details and more integration possibilities, which is going to open. So that's what the security panel is. Right, and of course we can integrate with most of the ACs and other things as well, like IR control or maybe cool master or maybe field server, intersys box, any of those options. And that actually mainly on the comfort and convenience side. Right, so because on comfort and convenience we really not going into deeper. The reason is we integrate most of the things as a third party. Right, so you'll have your own sensors, or any potential free contact which can actually give you. Right. And on the networking, so again, networking is actually a very vast topic. So we are going to talk about it like maybe after control for a few basic sessions on the products, composers, and other things. Right. And so today I'll just touch bases whatever which is mainly related for here. One is why we are worrying about the networking. So your automation guy just connect and make it everything happen. But and also the next thing is few basics and then power management. So that's what we're going to talk about here, right? Why we are worrying about the networking? So any system, so any automation systems or any of the devices, the ongoing demands of your IP devices is going way higher, right? So any home which has the internet, so definitely they have minimum 5 to 6 devices, right? And all their video streaming control, most of the things which happens through online, right? So you need to have a proper network setup. So definitely if you're not having it, it won't actually work. So whether your networking support multicast, whether your networking support UPnP plug and play, or whether it's gonna support like uh, bandwidth, whatever you are actually needed, and also like how Wi-Fi is gonna act on your network. So whether it is needed multiple access points and how the roaming is going to happen throughout the home. So these are small experience, but the problem is if a person is using an app and if he's roaming around, if it does not work fine, so definitely you're going to talk about bad about the network. So it is very much important to know about the network, right? And the basic terms of networking. So definitely I'm not going into it, but yeah, the basic structure of the internet is definitely we'll have the ISP modem or maybe the ISP router, and then from the router or the modem, so you will be connecting it to your main router, and then you will have multiple devices connected to your router, right? So either via Wi-Fi or maybe a wired option. And key things to note on your network is, one is your wiring recommendation. Always follow the standard codes for your wiring terminations, okay? And don't do your own color coding. So sometimes I've seen that as well, so that will really not gonna help. And on the recommendations, so the next thing is your cable running. For example, don't run all the cables in a single PVC or a single along together. Like don't run your power, audio, and network table together. Okay, so that will actually gonna create a lot of issues. For example, if you're having any home, when you mute something, when you play something, if you get some missing noise on your audio, if you mute, if it's giving some missing sound on the audio, so definitely there is some issue with your wiring. And also your internet actually loses the connections, or maybe if it does not work properly, then again there is an issue on your wiring. So small things, but definitely will make, maybe you can run it the separate PVCs, or maybe you can have a feet or maybe 2 feet difference and run, but don't run everything in a single PVC or along it together, like, so that will definitely gonna create a lot of issues in future, right? So that is one of the key things which actually need to be concentrated, right? And wiring recommendations, so have the proper tool, have the crimping tool, have the cable, have a bunch of power cords, have a bunch of cat6 cable, test each and everything before connecting it, and have a tester to test it. So, and also when you're coming to the configuration, you have the screenshot or maybe the configuration backup of each and every project, and even the passwords and everything. Because I seen few of the dealers, they'll just go and do the site. But the problem is, if you are going it for the some time, that is fine. So if I'm doing a site for 3 months, I'll be knowing what I'm doing it. If I comes back after 3 months, then if I'm going back after 6 or 9 months, then definitely I'll be in a problem, right? So I'll not know what is the password, what is the IP address series, what is the configuration. Nowadays most of the customers, they can change the configuration in the router because they want to do something on their own, right? So they can, that will actually create a lot of mess. Okay, so any sites, we always say have some backups of the data. Okay, so if there is any issue, you can actually load it back. All right, and of course on the wireless, there is different frequencies and the SSIDs and the password and the securities, everything, right? Key things on your wireless access point, configure each and every wireless access different channel number. In generally we call it as 1, 6 and 11 is the interference free channels, And maybe if you have more than that, so definitely you can run a site survey and you can change it accordingly. Don't configure all the access points to the same channel. That will definitely not gonna work. You'll have a lot of interference. And also check what is the frequency it is actually working on. So your frequency can actually play a major role on the speeds on your wireless devices. Right, and some of the common facts with your Wi-Fi. So your signal strength, your bandwidth issues, your number of devices connecting to the access point, and the number of antennas your wireless access points has. So small things that will make a lot of difference in your projects. Okay, so these are small things you actually need to know. And some of the Wi-Fi killers, you can call it as. Okay, so we always say don't put access point in the kitchen. The main reason is refrigerators, microwave ovens. So all these things are in your kitchen. So this will actually degrade your wireless frequencies. So that will create a lot of issues. And maybe cardless phones, even the control for controller. So even that works on the same frequency as your wireless, like 2. If it is a 2.4 gigahertz, it also will be a 2.4 gigahertz. Right, and one of the key thing, don't put your wireless access point in rack or closed locations. Okay, so your wireless purpose of the wireless access point is not that. So you need to place it in the right position where it can connect it to all the devices, and that is very much important. Okay, and also don't put like rack. Already your metal is very much degradable, so which means degradable for your wireless signals, right? And put it in the right center location, and where it can access. And also if you need multiple access points, you can add multiple access points as well in the project, and you can configure the roaming. And we said no to a secondary router as a wireless access point. There are a couple of reasons. One is even your secondary router can enable a secondary DHCP server. So if it is enabled, it will become another server. And another thing is stability issues. You will always have issues which is connecting. Sometimes if I'm not familiar with how to configure it, I'll end up configuring it as a secondary router itself. So that becomes two different networks. So this will create a lot of mesh. Okay, so instead of put a secondary access point and make it as another project. And in some cases, people will use a repeater as well. Okay, so even if you are using it as a repeater, you configure in a wireless mode. Don't as a wired mode, so that will take a different ID. Okay, these are small things we'll normally miss out and we'll make mistakes, but we'll suffer a lot later, right? So these are small things you can actually always take care. Okay, some of the key things, some of the problems what you normally see in your wireless products, which means your networking projects. One is, I'll take it up with the example of a poorly designed network. Okay, so you always in any project you have a router, and then next is you will have your main switch, and then from the main switch you connect all your slave switches. Don't daisy chain the switches. One of the reason we have talked in MOIP already, the video over IP device, right? So sometimes some device will have more uplink, so that may not be sufficient from the main switch, right? So if you daisy chain, and another thing is even if it one fails in between, that will be like another issue, right? So you cannot connect to the next switch. Have a main switch, connect all your devices to a main switch, and also connect your storages, accessing devices, all the things to that main switch itself, so that it can easily transmit the data from the main switch to the slave switches, right? And next thing is have the wireless planning properly. So based on your number of rooms, number of coverage areas, that is one of the important key point. And don't add too many PoE injectors. You can actually add, but it really won't be having option. Some cases you might be not having enough space to put it up, or you will have a lot of wireless injector hanging around, so that will create a lot of mesh in your projects, right? So that in that cases, when you're planning your main switch, you plan it with the number of PoE ports it is needed. And of course, all your switches, you will always buy it as a gigabyte switch, and check whether it need a managed switch, which means where you can manage your traffic flow. If you are using locally more, definitely you might be playing with the managed switch. In general, you will have more detailed control on the ports and the access bandwidth and everything in the managed switch. And each and every port can have their own bandwidth management allocation. But if I put a general unmanaged switch, definitely it is going to be useful for the small cases, but based on the project size. Okay, maybe if I wanted to configure something on the multicast, if I wanted to configure something on the detail on the ports, or if I wanted to enable some flood, which means just only to the particular port on multicast, I wanted to enable something, so you will not actually able to do it. So that will create a lot of issues, right? And some of the common questions most of the people will have, whether I want to configure each and every devices to a static IP address. As a control 4, we really don't ship any devices with static IP address. We ship everything as a DHCP enabled by itself. If you are good at networking, definitely you can configure into static IP, or maybe you can do IP reservation. What happens with the static IP and the IP reservation is you can know what is the IP address you are configuring it to the device. Maybe for example, controller 100 into 110, or maybe for a access point 111 to 120, maybe touchscreen 21 to 30. So you'll know what is the series, what is the IP address you are configuring it for the particular device, right? So this becomes more easy when you do the troubleshooting. But when it becomes a DHCP, so you need to run an IP scanner first, then you need to figure out what is the IP it is actually taking. Even you can do IP reservation. So even that is also will help you understand what is the IP you actually configured it. So either way you can actually do it, right? So if you are no networking, if you are good at it, you can actually do it. If you are not knowing it, so definitely don't do it. Our devices are good to work on DHCP by itself, right? And all the identifications, everything, it happens through a STDP, which is by the MAC address. So you can actually do it, right? So and when it comes to DHCP, so you always have the enough range of the devices to connect. Okay, so that is one of the key important thing what we normally missed out. And few of the key things, important things: don't run multiple DHCP server in a project. If I have the ISP router and then main router, put your ISP router in bridge mode, where it passes all the information to your main switch. Your main switch has to act as a router and a gateway. And also, when you're configuring the static IP, don't configure multiple devices with the same IP. Sometimes you may get a IP conflict warning as well, so you can be aware from that as well, right? So these are all the things we normally consider on the networking side, basically. And last thing on the networking, so we have just 10 minutes content, so not more than that. So sorry for taking more time. And power management. So if you are connecting it to UPS, that's fine. So most of the devices are actually enabled, which means for 24/7. So you can connect it to UPS and you can have the uninterrupted power. And if you have the proper power management by government or maybe your apartment or any of those things, so in that case, so you can consider a power conditioner. Okay, so why we say power conditioner is, your maybe in apartments and all they'll use a diesel generator that will create lot noise than your normal power, so your lighting may flicker sometimes, right? So these and all small things which actually you need to consider. Okay, so at least have your basic primarily devices like networking products, maybe power sensitive equipments like controllers, or maybe your camera, peripheral monitoring, few lighting circuits. You put all those things in UPS or maybe a power manager. And if you have uninterrupted power, if you are using DG, you always need a power conditioner. So that is very much important. All right. So that is on the power side. Right. From control flow side, so we have something called PCNA certified course also. What is this PCNA certified course? It is actually referred as a package certified network administrator. This is mainly for the dealers. Okay, so Control 4 also offers a certificate course for a content is more generic and more deep on the networking. So it'll have 6 modules: essentials, routers, switches, access points, designing, monitoring tool, everything about. And but it actually comes with the kit, mainly on the home segments, except very few like CDR or other peoples, they do the networking training. So people wanted to more understand more technology on the network. So there is no like a professional course, because they need to take a CCNA or CC something related to a Cisco course, right? So we as a company, so we actually planned something for the certification on the networking side as well. So maybe you can take a look around it. So if you want it, and this course comes with actually a kit, and there is a lot of things around it with the kit, and you'll have the entire router, switches, everything from the product itself. to practice. Once you practiced, and you will have an exam. So this exam will be third party monitored. So you'll have the actual certificate from them. So once you have them passed it, so we'll give the certificate. Right. So that is a topic on networking. And the next thing is controls. Okay. So how do I connect it to any devices in network? Okay. So as we see, controller is your heart of the system, right? So after your network, so then comes your net controller. Okay. So controller or whatever the name you can refer it as. Okay. So the controllers should have the capability to communicate to any of the devices whatever you are integrating. So okay, so here I'm actually taking example of one of my controller which is referred as a EA5, right? So what are all the ports it has? So it has like a contacts, relays, IR and serial, and of course Ethernet. And then after the Ethernet, definitely we have a Z-Wave module also to communicate with Z-Wave and Zigbee. On Z-Wave and Zigbee note, Control 4 actually have very few limited products, because Z-Wave and Zigbee is more open protocol, but we really don't want to open it to everyone so that we become more kind of integrating with it. We really don't want to do look out with Control 4 authorization. So any manufacturer who wanted to develop Zigbee driver for Control 4 or Z-Wave driver for Control 4, they should approach us. We will actually have the encryption which is added into their products. Okay, so like even Yale does, Somfy does, and some of the lighting products we have integration with the third parties. And we mainly decided to work with the Control 4 products, but we've opened up with few supported and allied third party products which need to be which need to be authorized by Control 4. Okay, so on the control side, so some of the key points, right? So what all the each and every controller in generally has. Okay, so one is actually communication port or a serial port in generally you normally refer it as. So where you'll have a 9-pin connectors. In that 9-pin connectors, normally 3-pin are used. In some cases, 5-pin will be used, like TX, RX, and then TX, RX, and the ground, like 2, 3, and 5. So what is the advantage of this COM port? It is actually a two-way feedback. Any devices can talk front and forth, and it can actually know the feedback. For example, if I turn on a projector, the projector will say the acknowledgement that I turned on. Okay, so that I am sure that my projector is turned on. Okay, so if it is not, definitely say it won't actually turn on, or it will say error on the content, right? And in Control 4, we support like RS-232, so we don't support 422 or 485. So if you wanted 422 and 425, definitely you need to use the adapter. And in case if you ask me what is the difference between this, RS-232 is like 50 feet, RS-422 is up to 4,000 feet, and then RS-485 is like a multi-point. Okay, so your RS-232 from controller to projector, or maybe one device to another, it called as a point-to-point communication. But RS-485 you can do multi-point communication. So multiple devices can have their own ID. They can multiple devices can communicate. If a small example is Control 4 wired keypad, right? So what are the devices which still comes with COM port? Because some of the people will say that I don't see COM port nowadays, but still few of the devices still has the COM port for integration, like maybe projectors or maybe a AV receiver, and even some of the third-party lighting products. So they do work on RS-232. So our controller can connect it to that RS-232 port, and I can control it from there, right? And IR output, and you can connect it with the IR devices. What we normally do is we'll connect with the IR emitter, what you are actually seeing it here, and this emitter which actually connects to the IR output port of the controller, and I can connect it to the IR devices, right? So which means on maybe if I'm connecting it to TV, so on the TV will have IR receiver, so it need to be placed near to the receiver to receive the commands, right? And also our controller has the IR blaster also. So what is the IR blaster? It does, it actually blasts the signal. So it's more similar like your handheld remote, like maybe a Tata Sky remote or the remote. The purpose of that blaster is mainly we have introduced to test the products, because all my controllers comes with the IR learner as well. So you don't have to have a separate learner to learn the codes. You can learn the codes by yourself and you can connect it. You can create your own driver and you can test it. If you are in a line of sight to the controller, you can blast it and test it, right? And but all these IR functions the main limitation is it's all one way. But the advantage is if I don't have any option to control it, so definitely I'll go for IR because that is more widely available in most of the products and I can control it, right? And then contact ports is mainly for the input like push button, sensors, etc. And the relay is a low voltage input output trigger. A low voltage output trigger, maybe I can connect to blinds, doors, or maybe locks, electronic locks, and other things. Okay, and this is low voltage. It is a DC voltage available in the controller. But if you wanted like AC, then definitely you need to use a relay module to control it. And then at last, the Ethernet port on the controller to integrate with the third-party IP devices, or maybe the remote connections, or online services like time management, streaming music, everything you can actually do it from the controller. So that's the whole story about the control ports basically, right? And this actually almost concludes most of the basics what you need to know as if I want to do automation, or if I want to connect or if I want to know the basics and how the things are working. So I just wanted to touch base on the few things. And just to wind up, so before we wind up, so I'll just run through a basic schematic. How does a normal typical wiring normally it will look like, right? So I'm just taking an example of maybe a AV receiver and with Roku as a source, and then of course I have a controller, and then maybe a TV, right? And how does a typical audio video on the control connection actually looks like? So just to start with from EA5, so controller. So from controller, I'm taking HDMI connecting into AV receiver, and then from AV receiver to TV. All right. So this is mainly for on-screen navigator for the controller, and then of course the audio outputs I do can connect from the controller. I can have a multiple audio output as well. So mainly for the distribution of the audio, and I'm connecting it to my audio matrix switch. All right. So I can connect it to my audio matrix switch, and from there of course definitely there is a control output also like IR. I can take the IR output and I can connect it to TV, and so this is like a control and audio video schematic from the controller, right? So then of course from your your AV receiver, so from my AV receiver I'm connecting it to my TV, and from AV receiver definitely then I will be connecting it to the speakers as well, and then my other source like a Roku player. So from my Roku player to a AV receiver, and then of course from my audio matrix switch to a 4-zone power amplifier, and then from for power amplifier to the speakers, maybe if you're using amplifier to trigger the external output, right? So this is like the main point I wanted to highlight here is it when you do the audio video connections, also you need a control connection as well. If it is not IP enabled, like you will have the AV receivers or maybe other devices which can work on IP. So that is fine. But if the device does not have the IP control, definitely you need to connect in either way, like IR or maybe RS-232, any of the control protocol, what it can actually support. Okay. So that will, so your existing audio video connection and the network connection, it's going to always remain the same. Your automation connection will be on top of it. So that is what the main key point here is. Right. So maybe if you want to do, know about the contacts and the relays, like maybe connecting it from the controller to the multiple sensors, or maybe garage doors, or maybe push buttons, or any of the door contact sensor. These are actually a DC input device. Maximum it can take up to 24-volt DC. And even a controller has the 12-volt trigger as well. I can take the 12-volt put 12-volt and connect it to any potential free devices as well to trigger it back. And then of course the relay which can connect to sprinklers, blinds, etc. Right. So this is like a basic schematic of like a control and then contacts and the relays, right? So I hope this might have actually given you a overall background. So what is actually needed for an automation guy to know about, and what is actually we can do it. And uh, the next session actually we are going to talk about the control flow products. Okay, so what are the products we have, and we'll walk through the Zigbee, and we will run through software basics also, where we can show you how does the system actually works and how does it gonna look like on the future sessions. And I hope definitely you might have had the basics of what it is actually needed, and for the people who know the basics and other things, definitely it might have actually given you a refresh of what is actually going around. And really thank you for all your time, and I hope the time has been well spent. And I'm really sorry for the small issues on the network side, on the audio side. And please, you can mail us and you can write us your feedbacks and all the things in to me, myself, or maybe Suman. And so that's our whole story for today. And Suman, you want to add up something before closing it up?
Training on products on Monday, 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. So look forward to join the session.
And very sorry for the session which got a bit time overlap, because this was like a whole day content. I was like trying to reduce, but at last this is the maximum I was able to uh, get it actually. And thank you for all your time.
And Suman, may I know when will be the next session will be conducted?
Monday, 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock here.
Excuse me.
Monday, 12 to 1.
The next session will be on Monday, 12 to 1 o'clock, and we will send you the invitation and the details very soon. And this presentation and definitely the video recording, if you wanted, we are gonna share this as well. And thank you.